Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 10th, and right now we're looking at the Pacific Ocean with the infrared satellite. You can see the frontal system moving towards the Pacific Northwest, BC, Washington, Oregon. This system's going to weaken a bit as it comes towards the Pacific Northwest, but we will get some higher elevation snowfall out of it as it then moves down through Oregon and weakens a bit. You can see this system. This is the one that got us here, that brought our active weather here. This is now across the northern plains, casting a cold front down across much of the U.S. this morning. We'll take a brief look at that. We're going to concentrate our extended forecast here across Pacific Northwest, including a new discussion on La Nina that is out here. So we'll look at those here in a moment. You can see Seattle again below average temperatures that got down to freezing yesterday, 9 degrees below average, November 9th. And take a look at this. Look at the record lows for Seattle. They really start dropping off there about November 11th. That seems to kind of be the marker of when we can get deep Arctic air into the Seattle metro here. The big cold snap in 1955 was the earliest. There's some other ones in there too, 1946. 1985 was a really good one. Got two really huge snowfalls in 1 week here for Seattle. So we're at that time of year where this can happen, but it is a fairly rare phenomenon. It's about a 1 in 10 year event or so. Now, taking a look down to California really quick, National Weather Service Sacramento along I-5 there. Watch out for the dense fog there through the valley. And this is kind of highlighting where that is south of Redding, includes Sacramento, Modesto down there. You know, slow down, watch out. You guys have seen the videos of those pileups through the fog. Now, taking a look here, this is for Pocatello, Idaho. Check out some of these temperatures. This is Idaho, here's Montana. Here's Yellowstone, Wyoming out here. You can see some of these areas below freezing for the lows. Highs just getting to the teens for many areas. And the higher elevation here, a lot of 20s out there as well. See Twin Falls getting down to 17, Burley, Rockland, Pocatello, all the way down to 15 tomorrow. So the cold air is in place here. This is also showing a freezing fog advisory. This is for South Oregon here, including Klamath Falls there. As you can see, portions of Nevada and California as well. So heads up for that. National Weather Service Spokane telling you how to dress. I don't know if you want to take advice from the National Weather Service on what to wear, but they have it. Spokane always got a good graphic out there on the Inland Empire. Now, taking a look here, let's take a look at our system moving in here. You can see this kind of brings some snowfall for the BC coastal areas here. Higher terrain again. It should clip the Washington Cascades. Kind of an uptick there in the precipitation in the last few runs. Some pretty good snowfall could fall across the Oregon Cascades as the system moves south and then weakens. But we'll take anything we can get this time of year. But this is kind of nice to have this at least in the interim before we're waiting for the storm train to return here in the Pacific Northwest. Now, taking a look at snowfall totals that we can expect, you can see some of the areas North Vancouver Island getting a pretty good shot of snow here, maybe an inch or two for the Washington Cascades. You can see maybe a few inches here for some of the areas of the Oregon Cascades, getting a little bit better than Washington as we go on in through Sunday morning here. Now let's take a look at the extended forecast a bit. This is the European 18,000 feet. This is the polar lobe that brought us all our weather here. It's moving through. There goes our next system here, mainly down through Oregon. Ridge builds for a couple days here, and then you can see the polar lobe try to eat away at the backside of this. As this ridge retreats a bit to the north and west, it would allow for a more active pattern here to then introduce itself here across Pacific Northwest. So there is some hope here for the future for those of you who like active weather here. We just might have to wait a few days for it. Now, taking a look here, this is the GFS, the 12Z run. Let's just make sure this is up to date. I know it's running right now, so let's get all the information we can. There goes our system here across the plains, and with the next system rolling through Oregon, good agreement there. Start to build that ridge for a few days. But look, we almost get clipped by something coming back down across the region here. We'll have to watch out for that as well. On in through, this would be about on in through early next week. We'll continue to watch that. The GFS, I think, might be out to lunch on that one there. But you can see this ridge pretty strong on the GFS, keeping these polar lobes off to the east for the most part across Pacific Northwest before it finally erodes that ridge. And we would probably turn into a more zonal active pattern here through the end of November here. As you can see, the Gulf of Alaska troughing get going again. But again, you can see the differences in the models there, and we're really kind of uncertain when the pattern is going to break down here. Now, taking a look here, this is 700 millibars, 10,000 feet. Northern Hemisphere, here's Russia, here's Alaska, Washington, there's Hawaii, Pacific Ocean here. There goes the very cold air moving across the rest of the lower 48 here. You see the ridging kind of build across the area here. As we go on into the extended, you can see the ridging continuing, but some really cold air moving down into Canada. It's going to be interesting to see just how much of this clips our region. You can see in the GFS running this morning, it kind of clips us a bit here, but then quickly gets out of our area here. But look at this really cold air starting to build up over Canada here as we go on through the extended of the GFS. We'll see if there's anything to that. Now, taking a look here, I just wanted to show you guys this. This is a cool animation here. This is the parent temperature. So they're actually taking some wind chill factors into account here. You can see that, again, northern hemisphere here is Alaska. There's Russia. If you look over here, it's Japan. Here's China over here. There's Africa over here. Here's Europe. Here's the lower 48 states. Now, look, you can see the cold front just chopping across the USA here. Pretty nice dynamic here, showing that cold air coming across the entire, really, continent of North America here. Now, I'm just going to put this into motion here. You can kind of see the diurnal heating of the day go across Africa, and you can kind of see this moving across the USA, and you can see that cold air swirling across the northern hemisphere here in the tropics. And you see this boundary between like these blues and the yellows here. That's kind of where these mid-latitude cyclones set up here, and it's kind of this never-ending battle here where you get these storms, especially for the northern hemisphere in our fall and winter seasons, and it reverses for the southern hemisphere. But you can see the clash between warm and cold air that can never be won. Now, taking a look here, a little bit of an introduction for you here. This on the right is the very highest level of the stratosphere. This is what's known as the stratospheric polar vortex. And up here on the left is the GFS. This is 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. So you're looking at 18,000 feet versus way up in the stratosphere here. And you'll hear people talk about the stratospheric polar vortex, and sometimes it has some implications on what weather we're getting at the surface here. So right now you can see the stratospheric polar vortex is kind of split over Greenland here, kind of over Russia here. If I put this into motion here, I want to concentrate on the extent. You can kind of see the polar vortex get going, and it looks like going to bring some cold air down into Canada here. So you can see there's kind of some correlation here. There's not always a correlation between the stratosphere and the lower levels either, but there seems to be here coming up here, and it's kind of pointing towards some really cold air getting down over Canada. I don't know how much of this will clip the Pacific Northwest, but it could help. You know, it depends on what this ridge does too. If this ridge sets up a little further west, we're going to be better suited to get some cold air back in here. But just kind of an interesting thing. I just kind of wanted to show you guys this. I'll let it run a couple times here. You can see the split. Then it consolidates, moves down over North America here. So this is what they talk about when they're talking about the stratospheric polar vortex. And sometimes the media will call these lobes the polar vortex too at 18,000 feet even though it's just a slice of the atmosphere at 18,000 feet. You know, there's many different levels of the atmosphere, so you have to think of it three-dimensionally. Now, taking a look here, Seattle, this is looking on in through the extended forecast here. You can see the precipitation looks like it's probably going to kick back up again as we go through later through November. It would not be a big surprise there. This is looking at 2-meter temperature here. I used Celsius here because this white line is the freezing line. You kind of see the cold air, how it gets more entrenched over the interior here versus the coastal regions here as we rise above freezing usually every day. And it's much more brief off to the east. But you can see the cold air mass really in place across the Intermountain West, eastern Washington, Oregon, but not really quite that extreme cold for portions of western Washington, Oregon, and southwest BC. Now, taking a look here, this is 24-hour 2-meter temperature change. So this is kind of an interesting map here, too. You can see the big changes over a 24-hour period, over 30 degrees change. And look at this. Some of these areas through Nebraska out towards Iowa, over a 40-degree change in a 24-hour period. And you can see the stretch across down towards the Gulf Coast, across eastern portions of the USA. Some of these temperatures through Texas. You're going to notice that across the area here as then you start to warm up in the backside of this cold air mass here. Kind of an interesting feature there. And one more thing here is apparent temperature, taking wind chills into account. You can see the cold front really just chop down all the way across through Texas here, all the way out to the Gulf Coast. Look at that. You're going to notice that temperature change across much of the USA, affecting millions of people. Pretty interesting there. Now look at this tropical storm Nicole out here. You can see how much moisture it has with it. So the planet is like, I've got all this warmth and moisture here, and I want to bring this to the poles. So I want to balance things out. I'm going to try to get rid of all my heat at the equatorial regions, the tropical regions, I should say. So you see all this huge slug of moisture move up the East Coast, probably some heavy rainfalls associated with it. Then you see this cold front really chop down across all the way off the East Coast. We go through the extended forecast there. Some very dry air behind that frontal system. And at 18,000 feet, you can see Nicole right there kind of move up, bring some heavy rains, and then the polar lobes swing through and really eject that thing out of here across and off the East Coast. Now here's a 6 to 10 day temperature outlook here. You can see that cold air really setting up across the country here. It's remaining below average here across Pacific Northwest. Look at our 6 to 10 day precipitation below average here, but watch what happens here in the 8 to 14. The temperatures relax a bit, but you can see they're starting to pick up on that signal as we go through November 17th through 23rd, start to bring that storm train back into the Pacific Northwest here. So fingers crossed there. Now this is looking at a new La Nina discussion here put out. You can see November 10th today. We are in a moderate La Nina now, and they're talking about 76% chance of La Nina during the Northern Hemisphere winter on in through February 2022. But it does look increasingly like we are going to be coming out of La Nina this time and probably going into at least neutral conditions and possibly even towards the El Nino. And the El Nino is probably coming, if not next year, the following year here. So that'll be interesting to see. And I'm interested to see how far we crawl out of this La Nina period that's been going on for 3 straight seasons now. And looking at this drought monitor here, November 10th, this was just put out today. You can see we're now in moderate drought. They did take away the severe drought for a lot of the areas across the region here, but we just can't seem to crack that exceptional drought in eastern Oregon here. Hopefully we get help with that as we go through the fall and winter coming up here. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Leave some comments, click like, subscribe, turn your notifications on. Thanks to all my new members out there. Yeah, I really can't thank you guys enough. We'll continue to look at this extended forecast. I'm really excited to get this storm train back in here. It looks like it's probably going to come, probably in the next week to 10 days or so. We're probably going to get some storms back in here, and we are going to bring a decent system through here tomorrow as well. Some mountain snows will be falling. So anyway, enjoy that weather while we got it. We're going to go ahead and do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.